A while back, I was watching a TikTok of this man who was in hospital clothes and in a hospital bed and gave this very compelling and moving speech about how he was just realizing and accepting that he was a quadriplegic now and that his life was destined to be entirely different. And he didn't really figure that out until he had been in the ICU for a month. And the doctors would come in and talk to him, but he didn't really understand it until that moment. And he filmed himself while he was going through the emotions. And he has a wife and several kids. And he seemed like a very, very kind-hearted, devoted husband and father. And while I was watching his story, of course, I was curious as to what happened. And he was running. He was running on the wrong side of the street and never saw the truck that hit him. There are these moments in life where we are experiencing a reality that we're used to, and we are unknowingly stepping into a portal in the future. I call these moments blind corners or blind turns, and they can go both ways. So you could be down on your luck, you could be deep in a hole, and then all of a sudden you see a piece of content that changes your life. It inspires you with a business idea to do something differently that finally shifts your mindset or the puzzle and propels you in a new direction. You experience an opportunity by meeting somebody that opens a door that was otherwise unknown to you. And all of a sudden you're hobnobbing with the right people at the right time, and the landscape of your future is forever altered. Or you have an accident and something forever changes the way that you interact in life. Sometimes there are previews to this. I remember one of the very first times that I had an episode of clairvoyance, and I know many of my listeners are also gifted in the clairs. Feel free to share yours if you would like to. There's no pressure. But I first had it actually when I was a child, a couple of times. And I warned my grandmother who was driving that a deer was going to jump out. And she didn't see anything, but we rounded a corner. And sure enough, there was a deer. But she was able to stop the car in time. And that's the first time that my family saw me as gifted. And then when I was an adult, I was not awake. And I think I was 18 or 19, barely an adult, maybe 20. And I had this feeling of dread, because I could feel that there was going to be a car accident that day. And I felt it all morning long, all afternoon. And finally in the evening, I was hanging out with this guy that I was dating. And we decided to go to the grocery store. And we bought our things and we were getting back in the car. I was driving my car. And all of a sudden, somebody T-boned or created a T-bone accident because they were pulling through the parking lot in the worst possible way because it was a busy parking lot and they were just cutting through all of the lanes like sideways, and I was driving the right way and we T-boned each other. But this was very insignificant. Nobody was injured and the car had damage to it, but it wasn't life-threatening. But I felt it, and I would continue to develop this gift throughout my awakening, being able to sense danger, being able to sense energy or people's negative vibration or intent in a variety of different contexts. And so sometimes you get a preview that a blind corner is coming up, particularly if it has the power to knock you off your path. But in my experience, sometimes it's completely blind, and I'm not sure why this is. Perhaps it's because you were always meant to go there, and you don't have foresight, because the universe needs you to show up there. Your higher self needs you to show up there. And I'm not saying that you're going to be a quadriplegic, but maybe there's a purpose to those blind corners and those twists and turns in your destiny that propel you into a higher service role, or propel you into a higher, more concentrated version of yourself, a transmuted version of yourself, a path that you might not otherwise take. And in the moment, it can seem devastating if it is a heavy path shift, or if it's particularly dark or burdenous. But as you progress through it, and I've had my own share of heaviness and darkness and burdens, and having some distance from some of those lifelines and some of those experiences, and I've deleted some of my content where I've talked about this, but if you've been following me for a while, you'll know what I'm referencing. It's not super important, but definitely in the nightmare realms. And I have to say that I'm actually better for it, but I never would have signed up for it, ever. And in fact, I was angry, feeling as though somebody signed me up on my behalf without my consent. And I had some stern talkings to the universe about how that works. But actually, several years later, I'm so much better, so much more whole, so much more powerful, so much more assertive. My boundaries are better. My self-love is super, super better, so much better. And the list goes on. And I equate it to, I had a podcast interview last year, and I equated it to being a lump of coal, but not realizing that you're a lump of coal. And you have an option under the strain of the pressure and darkness. You can be obliterated, or you can let that pressure turn you into the most beautiful diamond. And that is why I believe that sometimes the blind corners, when they go in the direction of darkness or heaviness, that is the opportunity on the table. It is an opportunity of trial by fire. It is an opportunity to find your voice, your power, your strength, your conviction, to know who you really are, and to shine your created light into the world. Most people make it. Most people actually make it through journeys like that. Not everybody does, and that's okay. There's another lifetime for them. And I know people that I don't think are going to make it in this lifetime. But I'm not their destiny manager. And the human me doesn't always get it right. But then there are the amazing moments. And these are the most fun, I have to say, where you've been in the dark journey and you're not sure when it's going to end. And all of a sudden, like a lightning bolt, your world changes. And it could just be, like, for example, getting on the internet for the first time when you have lived in a world where only payphones and landlines exist. And all of a sudden, you have at your fingertips the opportunity of a lifeline. And you combine that with any sort of entrepreneurial tendency or goals or ambitions, and you take that raw template of potential, you take this gateway experience, and you launch yourself into the world as a .comer. And hopefully you got out before everything busted. Or you learn about crypto before people even talk about it at parties. You're on the inside track and you take that opportunity, and then boom, all of a sudden you walk into a different life. These are the fun blind corners. These are the opportunities that, if you have the right mindset, if you understand yourself, your capabilities, and you have the tolerance for experimentation and risk, to put yourself out there, to do something new, then you can hit mega gold in this lifetime. And for every person that undergoes a shift in society, I'm talking about a major shift. Like, this is what our society is embarking on presently. We are collectively going through a major overhaul of our systems. For every time period like that, there is an opportunity to be the next creator, thought leader, Rockefeller subtype, but hopefully one that you're proud of, where people aren't spitting in the dirt after saying your name. Hopefully it's an archetype that, as we enter into this age of Aquarius, you're excited to stand up at that podium, wherever that podium is, wherever that niche is for you. And so these climactic periods of change, of failure, of stress to the systems, you see, we can see it like being pulled into the darkness, or we can actually see it as an amazing opportunity. If you have the stomach for it, if you have the insight, if you have the tolerance for what might happen around you, when all the lights go out, do you have a flashlight? Do you need a flashlight? Can you make a flashlight? This is where the opportunity of a lifetime comes in. And then hopefully we'll all be watching your TikTok or whatever the equivalent is and seeing your realization as you realize you've made it and you've stepped into not only a new version of yourself, but a timeline that you didn't even know was possible because you never saw coming. But you're elated by it. You want to shout it from the rooftops. It's like hitting the jackpot. That is the opportunity in disguise.